Hillside Flower. Take advantage of this opportunity to expand. The cyberspace is home to billions of people and is the right platform you need to grow your business. The Center for Innovation and Technology is offering you a golden opportunity to speak directly to your market at an affordable price. We also offer media training workshops, live streaming, documentary production, and events management. Get in touch with us today on the following numbers: +263 867 711 0290 or 0718 100 235. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media platforms. Like our Facebook page, Center for Innovation and Technology. Follow us on Twitter @SiteZW. And you can also check out our website www.site.org.zw. You can also visit our offices at 45 Moffat Avenue, Hillside, Flower. Take advantage of this opportunity to expand your business.
It's a good morning to you. Welcome to our Sake Online. My name is Zenzele and this is the Breakfast Club. Today in the program, we'll be talking about the Motlanthe Commission report to just understand what the report says and its implications. But before we do that, I just wanted to look at a few things. Yesterday, we saw a number of publications or the stories that were going the rounds. One of them is that the Ministry of Health has suspended the training of nurses. According to their explanation, they can't absorb all the nurses. But we know that in many health institutions, we don't have enough nurses. There are some clinics that are still not adequately staffed, but we are finding that at the time when we're supposed to be increasing the number of nurses that actually we are recruiting, we are decreasing and we are stopping it completely. So we're asking ourselves, what kind of a country are we living in where we are not investing in our health but investing in our military? But at the same time, the ZANU-PF Congress or conference resolved to start training youth brigades, green bombers, they are not. So sometimes you ask ourselves exactly what are the priorities. Yesterday also what happened was Chicken in scope group, so to speak, the Simbisa group, really published a statement saying that because of the ongoing crisis in foreign currency and many other issues, they've decided to give incentives to those who are buying in foreign currency. So you realize, for example, a two-piecer is $8.15 bond and $2.15 US. So what they're doing is that introducing a parallel pricing, so to speak. So you can pay in bond, you can pay in US dollars, you can pay via RTGS, you can pay via EcoCash, and what it means is that each time you pay with a US dollar or a bond, the rate is different. Yet our Minister of Finance, Mthuli Ncube, and the government keeps insisting that is a 1:1. So I'm asking myself, exactly where is the 1:1? Because the example, what has been done by INSCO, I'm sure that many other businesses are going to follow, and you will see this parallel pricing taking place in many industries. Anyway, that's what is happening in the building sector, in the building industry. If you want building material, they will tell you that we'll give you a 70 or 75% discount if you're paying in hard currency. So clearly, the 1:1 issue is not working. And lastly, we have the issue of fuel. We're driving around yesterday and even this morning. There are huge queues of fuel. And this is just a few days before Christmas, and people are preparing to go to the rural areas and all those kinds. And we don't have enough fuel. And the government has even stopped giving excuses because they kept on saying we have enough fuel, blah, blah, blah. But now they are dead silent. They're not even talking about it. So we now have, the money crisis, which has become normal. We now have fuel crisis that have become normal. And I'm asking myself, exactly where is this government going? What is it that the new dispensation has brought to us? Is the Second Republic really another republic, or we are still in the same situation, or we're getting worse? Anyway, to discuss all these other issues and many others, I have Effie Ncube, who is a political analyst, and you'll be talking to him about many other issues. Effie, my first question to you is the situation in Zimbabwe. How do you see it?
Well, it is a reflection of the bad governance that has been prevailing since 1980. There is absolutely nothing new about it. The lying government, a government that is so given to do injustice rather than justice for the people, a government that is more given to stealing from the people rather than growing the cake for everybody to share in it, a government that is more given to retrenching than creating jobs, a government that is more given to destroying the shelter of the people through Operation Ramasina and so forth, instead of building more houses for the people. A government that is comfortable when millions of children are not at school, when millions of people are not working, instead of accommodating everybody in the cake. So whatever you were talking about, there is nothing new. It's only a consolidation of the crisis that has been developing over so many years. In particular, you highlighted the issue of the health sector. Don't forget that one of the SDGs, as they are called now, is Sustainable Development Goals, is ensuring that the healthcare gets to every person, whether it's maternal health, child health, or general health for every person, whether it is eradication of illiteracy, and also developing a functionally literate society. All those things are commitments that the country has at the international level, but also, most importantly, those are obligations of the Constitution. And the President, the Cabinet, Parliament, and every other arm of state has an obligation to deliver a good life for every person. It is unfortunate, but not surprising, that the country is dying, and dying very, very fast.
Yeah, that's quite, it's Christmas, and what do you think? A few days before Christmas, we have many basic commodities. We don't even have drinks. We have a fuel crisis. Now, what kind of Christmas are Zimbabweans going to have this year?
Well, probably one has to take you back. In 1983, just before Christmas, people were being slaughtered by Kukurahundi. In 1984, the same was happening. In 1985, 1986, and so forth. So the difference is that probably today you don't have fuel. But in 1983, there was no fuel deliberately because the state had cut off all the services to the civilian population. A lot of people were supposed to get a good Christmas, lost their parents, lost their siblings, and so forth. So these are hardcore criminals. The people that are governing this country, they are used to killing people, to starving people. There is nothing surprising to them. But if you were in a normal country and you do not have fuel stocks, and you do not have food stocks, and you are nearing a holiday like Christmas like this, that would be a national tragedy. But probably later on we are going to be talking about the report of people that were killed, that were injured, and so forth. So the shortages are a small thing compared with the serious harm and destruction that this government has done to Zimbabwe.
Talking about the report, just a few days ago, the president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, presented the findings of the Motlanthe Commission, which was actually investigating the killings that happened on the 1st of August, following the elections on the 30th of July, and immediately after that released the full report. What is your initial impression of this report?
Well, first let's deal with what it doesn't do, and then we'll go to what it does. First and foremost, the president insulted the people of Zimbabwe, really further destroyed the trust that they had on the government when he promoted the general who was responsible for the National Reaction Force, Brigadier General Anselm Sanyatwe, who is now a Major General. When you promote a person who has been accused, and in this instance, really, the accusation or the allegation has been solidified in the report that his force is responsible for killing 6 people and injuring so many innocent Zimbabweans. And immediately, as soon as you receive the report, you promote that person to a higher office. You are actually saying, well done for killing the people. You are already undermining the report itself. So it is important to note that the president has not done justice to the people of Zimbabwe by promoting the general.
So still on that, I mean, by the time the Mugabe, I mean, these guys, they're almost the same. By the time Nangagwa promoted Sanyato, he already had the report. He knew the contents of the report.
That is what I'm saying. You have his response to the findings of the commission is to promote the very person who is accused of having killed the people, because he was the commander of the National Reaction Force. And when you promote that person, you are actually praising them. You are giving them a higher salary. Remember, these people are paid by the people of Zimbabwe. He doesn't just promote them and then the next day he pays them from his salary. No, we pay them. We, the victims of the atrocities that were committed on the 1st of August 2018, are going to be paying him for what he did against the people of Zimbabwe. It's just a tragedy. But then you have to sort of wind back to the 1980s. You have Parent Shiri, where he is today. He was a colonel when he was leading Kukuraundi. He retired as an air chief marshal. He got promoted as a result of slaughtering over 20,000 people. So it's not surprising that a person who kills 6 people gets promoted, if those who kill 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 get promoted. It's the same with Chiwenga. He was in charge of the 1st Brigade that is located in Bulawayo during the Kukuraundi. He provided logistical support for Kukuraundi. He provided information. He provided everything. He was the person who provided the targeting information for the civilian population. So he facilitated, aided and abated the commission of the Kukuraundi genocide. He got promoted to a general, and then the next thing into a coup. So there is a tradition in this country that those who commit injustices, those that kill the people of Zimbabwe, those that commit atrocities against democracy are promoted, because the regime itself is not a democratic regime. It doesn't see itself as a promoter and defender of the rule of law and human rights. So those that destroy the rule of law, that destroy human rights, get to be promoted. And that's exactly what the president did. He lived up to the expectations, surprisingly, but consistent with the history of ZANU-PF.
You remember that during the commission inquiry stages, this Sanyato comrade and Valerio, the army general, denied that the army was not involved. They did not kill people. Now you have a report which confirms that the report says, the people who were killed and the injured were killed by the army. Now, what does it say about these two gentlemen?
Well, first and foremost, when the report was tabled with the president, what he was supposed to do was to address the people of Zimbabwe publicly, not through a ZANU-PF conference. He goes on TV live at 8 and say to the people of Zimbabwe, look, I have the report and these are the findings. He summarizes the findings himself. Thereafter, he was supposed to do what we call political accountability part. Instead of course, the commission recommends that there has to be internal investigation and disciplinary mechanisms that are set up to discipline or somehow find accountable those that have already been found accountable by the commission. But the president was supposed to, as a matter of courtesy and responsibility to the people of Zimbabwe, to demote those that they were found accountable by the commission. He was supposed to sack them. What we were supposed to see was General Sanyato going home as a result of the report of this commission. We were supposed to see a lot of people that were found responsible, even if they were not named. If your unit was named, if you were in charge of that unit, then you are responsible, vicariously responsible for the atrocities that were committed by those that are under your command. So he was supposed to sack them. He was supposed to do what is expected in a normal government. But this is not a normal government. You get to be promoted because you killed people.
So there's also, if we go back to the 1st of August, one of the reasons why, the commission was set was because Mnangagwa was saying we want to find out circumstances that led to the deployment of the army. Yet the commission comes out and says the army, Mnangagwa approved the deployment of the army. So who was he trying to,
Well, he's not serious. He was taking, and he's still taking, the people of this country for granted. He's not a serious president. A serious president would not use so much resources, probably millions of dollars, or in a country as poor as this one. We were earlier on talking about the fact that they won't be able to be employing nurses, adding teachers, adding those critical staff for the welfare of the people of Zimbabwe. But he has the temerity to set up a commission to find something that he already knew. He issued the orders for the deployment of the military. He knew the circumstances that led to that. Whether there was rioting, as he said, or a peaceful protest that is consistent with the rights of the people as enshrined in the Constitution. But at the end of the day, he authorized the deployment of the military. And he wasted a lot of resources trying to find out what he already knew. That's just a joke. And also, when you look at the findings themselves, you would note that there is nothing new in the findings. They talk to electoral reforms. That's what we have been talking about since 1980. We have been pushing this regime to reform the electoral environment, the legal environment, the constitutional environment, so that the people of Zimbabwe can securely and safely cast their vote. And every vote will count. And those that lose the vote will respect the verdict of the people. And those that are winners are allowed to take power consistent with the precepts of the Constitution. There is nothing new also by talking about the security sector reforms. What they call the professionalization, the accountability mechanisms in the report are actually security sector reform that the people of Zimbabwe and their constitution has been calling on this government to do. And when you look broadly at the report, they are reporting on something that we already knew. The military killed the people. We knew that. Probably some were killed by the police, but in a nutshell, we know that the military did that. We already knew that. He receives that report. As a president, who is entrusted with protecting the lives of the people of Zimbabwe, and instead of taking it serious, he just thrashes it. It's a nothing to him by promoting the general, as we earlier on said. But also, remember, the report itself raises fundamental questions that are already captured in the Constitution. The protection of the lives and property of the people, the use of force, the deployment of the military is regulated in the Constitution. You didn't need a commission to tell you what is already in the Constitution. You didn't need that. So it's money wasted, but fortunately, the commission also raises the same questions, affirms what the people of Zimbabwe already knew, save for instances where there are disagreements, of course, in certain findings and also in certain recommendations that it gave to the president.
The commission, in its recommendations, it says that the army, those in the army who went against the law, obviously by killing people, should be identified, and internal processes should be taken to discipline them. There are two things that worry me here. First of all, during the commission itself failed to identify these people. And the army that is supposed to identify them, the leader of that unit or the reaction force has already been promoted. Is there any chance that the army will then go and identify these people?
Well, if they did, say they do that, the kind of justice that we expect, the kind of testimonies that we expect to be done in public. For instance, if you identified a particular person, the soldier who was kneeling and shooting at the civilian population, one would expect that they testify in public in a court of law as to whether they were given the command to shoot the civilian population, whether they were given certain instructions to do things that are unlawful, that are unconstitutional. You expect that that is going to be the case. But I do not have faith, and I think 99.9% of the people do not have faith in this government, this ability to do justice to a cause like that. I don't think they are going to be doing it. I don't think they are going to be identifying the people and producing them to the public. Where they are going to do that, they are going to do some sort of a lip service approach, where they go in, they identify a person that they already know in this instance, and then they give them some money, and then they retire them to another job. They will retire them from the military and employ them somewhere. And then we get nothing out of that. So I don't think that the recommendations as proffered by the commission are going to be adhered to by this president or the ZANU-PF government. Remember, this is not a first. There are recommendations that were given by the Tumbuchana Commission, by the Chiambagwe Commission in 1983 and 1984, before 30,000 people were killed. The recommendations, we understand, they really, probably first the findings were very clear that there was a genocide that was ongoing in Matabeleland and Midlands. And it recommended that the government should stop that. But they proceeded over so many years. So it's not surprising that this government will look at the report and do what it did to the Chiambagwe Commission, save for the fact that they released this one. But inaction will continue. One hopes also that the government is going to take leave from what it did now. By releasing the report, it should go back and release the Chiambagwe and the Tumbuchana Commission reports, so that the people learn the fullest picture of what was transpiring at that time. And also, they still need to set up a mechanism that will be very transparently hear the testimonies and release a report of what happened in 2008 in respect of so many people that lost their lives, the properties that were destroyed, including during Operation Mrambaswina, also during the period of Kukuraundi. We still need a formal process that operates more or less like the commission, the Motlanthe Commission, that hears the people and then releases a report in that respect. That is still very much important.
We know largely that this report was done, or the commission was set up in order to please the Western world to engage as they wanted, because it happened in the full view of the international community, and they were asking exactly what we're going to do. And he was under pressure to release this document so that he is seen to have been different from Mugabe. So do you think he has managed to please those that he wanted to please?
Well, depending on what they wanted from him, probably they are pleased. But the most important people that must be pleased is us, the people of Zimbabwe, the employers of him, supposing that he legitimately won the election. But he's the legal president in any case. He might not be legitimate, but he is the legal president. There are those two things are different, the legal part and the legitimate part. The legal part is the fact that he was affirmed by the highest court in the land. He is in office. Whatever he decides is legal. So he's the legal president. But we are still very much unconvinced as the people of Zimbabwe that he is different from President Mugabe in practice. Yes, what he says, the way he speaks to people may be fundamentally different from President Mugabe, but we, the people, are not convinced that in terms of operations on the ground, his attitude towards the rule of law, towards the constitution, towards human rights, towards corruption and other things are any different from the previous president. But we need also to say this report will not be doing a number of things that still has to be done, even if you still have the report. The report will not eradicate the corruption, the rampant corruption that is taking place in the country. The report will not restore the rule of law. It will not facilitate free and fair elections. The report will not change the attitude of the government towards the people of Zimbabwe. The report will not in any way eliminate the fuel lines that you are seeing throughout Zimbabwe. It will not pay school fees, pay for medical bills and so forth. It will not create jobs. There are so many things that this government still has to do to earn the trust of the people of Zimbabwe. Even if they have this report, Without doing all those things, they are not going anywhere. Even if they please a master somewhere in Europe, a master somewhere in America, a master somewhere in the Asia Pacific, they still have to please the master who lives within the borders of Zimbabwe.
The report says the MDC leaders were responsible for the march, probably for what happened in terms of, they're saying that before and after the elections, the threatening speeches which say that if they don't win the elections, they are going to demonstrate a threat which they carried. So what are the implications of the MDC or to the MDC after this report?
Even the report itself, it doesn't say the MDC killed the people. It says the army and the police. So if they were inciting people to peacefully protest, if they were inciting people to go out there and enjoy their constitutionally protected rights to freely protest, to petition government, to freely express themselves, there is nothing illegal with that. That there are people who ended up burning property, destroying a few other things, does not necessarily mean that they were given orders to do so. There is nowhere in the report where the commission is saying, yes, Tendai Biti or Nelson Chamisa gave orders for people to go to a ZANU-PF office and destroy that office, to go and burn the cars, or destroy whatever other property was destroyed. So to me, it's a nothing. It says nothing, because if you are inciting people to exercise their constitutional and protected rights, you are not committing any illegality. But then what it says in a political sense, it attempts to balance, it attempts to find a moral equivalency of the deaths of the 6 people and the injuring of so many other people, by saying the other side was also responsible for grievous activities. In other words, the other side was responsible for inciting the army as well. So the MDC incited the army to kill the people. The MDC incited the police to kill the people. It's not General Sanyatwe, General Swanda, Vice President Chiwenga, and President Mnangagwa we incited or ordered them to do so. They are trying to find a moral equivalence that does not exist. That did not happen. That did not happen. But politically, it says we are all responsible. Both ZANU and MDC are both responsible for what happened on the 1st of August. And then as they move forward, they will say, we could have done better, both of us, in this instance. But there is no moral equivalence. The ZANU-PF and the state institutions are responsible for what happened on the 1st of August.
Does that set the stage for negotiations and finding each other for the two parties?
Well, it does. For a manipulative leader, he can always say, look, you guys, we have both been found culpable for what happened on the 1st of August. So we can talk about this thing and eliminate the mistrust, as the commission will say, and ensure that there is accountability as we move forward. But I think what the MDC needs to do is to insist on the total reform of the state. The security sector reforms, the media reforms, the institutional reforms in their totality, the alignment of all the laws with the new constitution, and insist on a government that respects the rule of law, human rights, and the democratic principles that we do not only find in the Constitution of Zimbabwe, but are also found throughout all other instruments of governance under the United Nations. So yes, I do find that there will be an attempt to use that one to pressure the MDC to negotiate with ZANU-PF and find a common ground somewhere. So one or the other, they are going to be doing that. I expect them to do so.
I mean, amongst the many recommendations that are there is the issue of compensation, that the victims should be compensated. Do you see this happening?
Yes, I think that one is an easy thing for them to do. Just to print out bond notes, as they are fond of doing. They will do that. I expect them to do so. It's the easier part. The most difficult part is to then do the bigger picture of justice that is being recommended by the Commission, and that is being demanded of the President and government by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. That is going to be the greatest challenge, really, to go out there and do a quantum of the losses. They are going to do so and just give people one or two, some few $1,000s and so forth, and probably build a house for that one, pay school fees, medical bills, and the like. I think they are going to be doing that as a way of covering up for the greater part of the injustices that they committed against the people. But fundamentally also what is important is that the Commission raises something around the issue of Gukurahundi, that the government still has to act on Gukurahundi. That the Commission came to the people wanting to hear about the 1st of August only, but they were told about Gukurahundi. It convinced the Commission that the government still has to do something about that. And probably we'll get to a stage where, after immense pressure, probably not under a ZANU-PF government, but also in future, we can get a comprehensive resolution of the atrocities that were committed under Gukurahundi. So that people are brought to justice, there is accountability, there is compensation, reparations, and so forth. We have restorative justice in its totality. But yes, I do see the government acting on certain parts of the Commission reports, but ignoring or stalling on other parts of the report.
Now, Zimbabwe is always on a commission, inquiry, recommendation since 1980. Yeah. We are building and starting and building and starting. What's the future of this country? When are we going to focus on development and not on healing? Because we keep on injuring people and trying to heal, injuring people. Our history is littered with violence. Will that ever end?
It will. My answer to your question, when will that happen? It will only happen when ZANU-PF is gone, and not only gone as a political party, but with it gone the political culture that it created, the culture of corruption, of rigging elections, of not adhering to the rule of law, of ignoring human rights, of ignoring the Constitution, of the partisan application of the law, of collapsing the state into the party machinery of ZANU-PF. Once that culture is gone, you will see a state that will be able to flourish. So first things first, you need to get rid of ZANU-PF. Then you get rid of the culture that it created over the past 38 years. Then you make it a point that those that are coming in do not bring in the same culture that was existing for the past 38 years. So that is the only time you are going to have a state that adheres to the principles and norms and international standards of human rights, and focuses on creating jobs, focuses on working hospitals, working schools, of ensuring that the judiciary is independent, the press is free, and the entirety of the rights of the people as contained in the Constitution are enjoyed. But as it stands now, the DNA, the culture of ZANU-PF is such that they cannot live without corruption. They cannot live in an environment where they are not suppressing dissent and democracy. They cannot live where they cannot suppress democracy, where they cannot rig elections and all those things. And a society that does not allow people to freely express themselves cannot expect those people to successfully create jobs. ZANU-PF believes that it can do everything. It can create jobs, instead of creating an environment where companies and private individuals in the country can create jobs. All they need to do is to eradicate corruption. That is within their means. But unfortunately, what is corrupt is everything beginning with the procedure going down. Every institution of state has been corrupted. So you don't expect the same people who are benefiting from corruption to clean the corruption. You don't expect the same people who are benefiting from rigged elections to stop rigging elections. So we need to get to a stage where eventually we get rid of ZANU-PF, and with ZANU-PF, the political culture that they've created. And that's the only time where you will see a prospering Zimbabwe.
And finally, the president of the country has said he's studying the report. The the spokesperson of ZANU-PF said the party is studying the report. The MDC has rejected the report. So what's the way forward?
Well, you don't study a report that is not 20, 30,000 pages. I went through the report. I saw everything that is there. As I said, you can disagree with the findings. But when it comes to the recommendations, ignore some of the findings that you disagree with. When it comes to the recommendations that talk to the security sector reforms, to electoral reforms, to compensation, I would want to see the 6 people and all those that were injured compensated. I would want to see that. We want to see that. I don't agree with that. You do not do justice to 6 people simply because a person has committed even greater atrocities in the past. That is wrong. You still have to, every life matters in Zimbabwe. Every injustice has to be corrected. So the recommendations are things that are already contained in the Constitution. The President did take an oath to not only abide by the Constitution, but to discharge the obligations it imposes on him. And the obligations it imposes on him is to do justice to every person, to protect the rule of law, to compensate those that are victims or survivors of injustices. So he doesn't need the consent of the MDC to fulfill the obligations of the Constitution. He doesn't need the consent of the MDC to compensate the people that are victims or survivors. He doesn't need even the consent of the MDC to reform the electoral environment. So he can proceed with that. The MDC, of course, they went in protest. Even they were very clear from the beginning when they went before the commission that they were not happy about the existence of the commission because they thought it was going to be investigating things that were clear. It was trying to find out something that was in the open and using the little resources that were supposed to be channeled to other well-meaning and well-deserving demands of the population. So they are an opposition party. It is important in a democracy that you have a party that will always be championing the other side, the alternative view. So that is important. There is nothing wrong with that they are rejecting the findings. In particular, I think what they are rejecting in this instance is the fact that there is an attempt to find a moral equivalence between the people that were killed and the protests that were taking place in the streets. To say, you MDC people are responsible for having incited the army to kill the people, which is not the case. It is the president, his vice president, his ministers, his ZANU-PF that are responsible for the losses of life that occurred on the 1st of August. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Effie Ncube, a political analyst, talking about the Motlanthe Commission, the findings and the issues that are involved there. And I think we still have a lot to do as Zimbabwe, and we are hoping that the government of this country is going to take time, as they are saying, they are studying the report, and after studying it, they are going to implement, especially the recommendations of the report. And we know that on Saturday, the 22nd of December, we'll be celebrating the unity between ZAPU and ZANU. Some people have called it the surrender, when ZAPU was swallowed by ZANU. And up to now, there are some of the recommendations actually in that unity accord which were not implemented. And you ask yourself whether this government is really serious when it talks about unity. So we will be, looking at those issues and looking at some of the issues that were in the unity accord and never implemented, and asking ourselves, did the unity accord actually achieve a lot? And you remember that one interesting thing when I was going through the Unity Accord document and negotiations is that they never talked about the genocide. They never talked about the killings of the people and the compensation. That was not on the agenda, and it was never discussed. And even in their acceptance speeches when they signed the Unity Accord, they really never talked about the killings and all those kind of things. And that is the reason why Kukuraundi is an issue up to today, because when they signed the document that brought them together, they never discussed about the issue that made them fight in the first place. My name is Zenzele. Till we meet again tomorrow, have a good day.
Of people. And